Okay, so welcome everyone, and good morning, and happy Friday, and happy non-farm payroll day. It's U.S. and Canadian employment numbers today. We're interested in this. The reason I pretty much try to do a special webinar every month for non-farm payroll, and just say, hey, let's all get together and chat about what's going on with these markets for a moment. About every other time we have Canada and US on the same Friday, and then one time we'll have Canada and US on different Fridays. The next time they'll be on the same Friday. I think Canada has employment numbers about every 6 weeks or something. And it's I don't know, it's something like that. But US is always, or usually always, the first Friday of every month, which I think we're at. Feels like we're past. I guess we are the first Friday of the month. So anyway, it is U.S. and Canadian employment numbers today. We're lightly interested in some USD pairs. So there's some dollar pairs I'm interested in, and I figured we can look at that. There are a lot of Canadian pairs that we're interested in. And so that's going to be interesting for us. So U.S. a bit, Canadian pairs a good bit. Hi Joseph, good morning, welcome. So let's have a look at these charts. Let's see what's going on. We've got some stuff in the works. And then the news is out in just about 10 minutes. So just want to take a couple of moments here. Like I said, we're watching some of these Canadian pairs pretty closely. Here's just a few examples of some things I'm interested in. We'll see if these employment numbers really kind of get things cranking. It seems like, excuse me, it seems like employment numbers have been a little less volatile for the markets lately. And by lately, I mean the last few months. We've seen, and I probably need to jog my memory a little bit. Of course, I've watched every employment news announcement for every country over the last, 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, whatever it's been. But it seems like there hasn't been quite as big of a reaction. And I feel like that could be starting to creep up just a little bit. We're now starting to see this shift in what the markets are doing and what the markets are telling us, right? It's gone from everybody bullish, 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 economy's booming, everything's great, interest rates are going up in central banks all around, to interest rates might be calming down just a little bit. The economy is looking good, but it's a little bit shaky, kind of global situation here. And now it's kind of shifting a little bit, and I don't know that I see long-term, a big long-term lasting effect of this yet, but now it's shifting to central banks are cutting interest rates, right? We're cutting interest rates. Economies, around the world seem to be fairly strong still, the major economies. But there is a lot of things in question. And so now I think employment news could start to have a little more impact than it's had. Because again, we've just had this kind of nonstop bullish market, hawkish central bank, yada yada, and now I don't know. I feel like I could see some slight differences starting to sneak in, slight to semi-major differences starting to sneak into all these different economies, currency pairs, and so on. So anyway, that's kind of how I see things starting to unravel here. So of all these pairs, there's so many things to look at. Let's look at a Canadian pair here in the form of the New Zealand CAD. We've been watching this. We've been talking about it a little bit. New Zealand CAD's kind of interesting because I think we could see this thing head a little bit lower before starting to head a bit higher. And I'm wondering if the news is going to give us oh, there we go. I'm wondering if the news is going to give us a little bit of an opportunity to maybe see that happen, right? Here's a 4-hour chart of New Zealand CAD, and I think that there's a lot of really high value targets all up here, right? A lot of things to be going for there. And so what I'm curious about is, is it possible that maybe the news is going to do a little bit of this? Could we see the news drive it down, retest support, give us a nice double bottom? We could start trading this thing up big time. I think that's possible. I think it's possible. And, we still have some pretty high value targets down below. So if this really starts to run up aggressively, then it just creates, possible trading opportunities for us on the sell side. So I think, hopefully we're going to see a little bit of news act as a catalyst for, either getting this into a point where we can, start buying it and trading it up to the 92.50 area, or the news is going to, help it kind of continue in that direction, and we can jump on board with, with the momentum. So, so that's just, one kind of easy example that I'm looking for. I like New Zealand CAD. I think 92.50, 60, 70 area is a great spot to aim for on this pair. And I would love to see if some news can help us kind of, get a little closer to that. So New Zealand CAD's one of them. Speaking of, dollar and CAD news this morning, we have the US dollar Canadian dollar pair that I was really interested in this pair as it was kind of lurking. We have a big target up here at about 136.00, big double top here, 136.50. I thought maybe we're going to get up there. Maybe we're going to get up there. And then, then we kind of over the last week, we've seen the dollar CAD come down a bit. And it's, it's run down a good little chunk, but dollar CAD is now down into a pretty nice little decision point. I'm curious to see what the news is going to do with the dollar CAD here. We've got a pretty well-established channel that takes us back, all the way. I mean, it really kind of goes all the way through all of this and through all of this. So the channel takes us back into September 2017, right? So it's a pretty well-established channel. And as dollar CAD kind of failed to get up into that big resistance area, we're back into a pretty interesting little spot. There's some, you can see some highs that were held here. You can see some good support running through about 133.00. I think this is a pretty important decision point. We have some interesting targets down in the low 130s. Here we are, only kind of in the, we're already kind of in the low 130s, but down another 200 pips and down into kind of 130. There's some interesting targets that I could see the dollar CAD, trying to get to. Now, we got the news coming out in about 4 or 5 minutes here, so we'll be ready to kind of do that. But I think I think that this kind of general area where this dollar CAD sits is a pretty important decision point. So I have these kind of these arrows drawn here, and it's not because yes, the market can go either direction here. Of course, it can go either direction anytime, anywhere, any place. But this is a spot where we're likely to see some amount of pretty big inflection points. And so, as we kind of get a little bit lower into the, lower 133 area, we're about 133.59, 60 area. We get into kind of that 133.00, 133.10. That's going to be an important area, and that could, that could be a big decision point. So that's dollar CAD. One thing that I'm hugely, super duper, massively interested in is this dollar index. So, is employment news going to come out and just be so horrific that the dollar is just going to get killed, or is the market going to react to whatever the news is that's really going to kind of start this dollar on the path? Now, I've talked a lot about the pre-summer movement, and we've seen the pre-summer movement, which for anybody that's kind of, hasn't heard that before, hasn't ever talked about it, the pre-summer movement is, a big rush in volume and a big rush in movement. It happens, usually as early as March, but usually April, May, and going into June. And oftentimes it happens on the U.S. dollar. That's been pretty consistent over the last, decade and a half. But it didn't really happen much on the U.S. dollar this year because we've got so much political and economic uncertainty happening that the dollar's just kind of stuck, right? But it did happen on some other pairs, so we still got it, just not as much on the U.S. dollar like we normally do. And so, you know, I'm always curious: is you know, a simple news announcement like employment numbers going to be, you know, the catalyst that kind of gets the U.S. dollar moving? And we have a pretty long-term, large pattern, and this is what I would like to see the U.S. dollar do. And I'm basically holding out for this movement right here. So, you know, is the news this morning going to kind of get that going, or, you know, or not? We've got some good support running through about this 97. We've talked about this in the trade group quite a bit. 9,700 is kind of that little area. We're sitting just a little bit above that 9,705. So we start getting this thing breaking and making a move, and we're gonna see some activity here. Bo, I do like the euro dollar, and I think the euro dollar goes very nice in conjunction with all of this. So we're looking at, you know, dollar index making a big breakout down, and we're looking at the euro dollar making a big breakout up. And we'll look at that in just 2 seconds, but I'll definitely come back to the euro dollar. We're just about, we're seconds away from seeing some of this news hit. So let's see how these numbers look. Again, I'm not trying to trade the moment-to-moment reaction in the news. I don't think it's steady and stable enough to do that. But let's just kind of see how everything plays out here, and how it goes. We'll look at euro dollar, look at dollar CAD, we'll look at some of these other CAD pairs. Definitely, you know, a little bit interested in. Woo, okay. So that's looking like more of a dollar movement that we might have just had there, as opposed to Canadian movement. So dollar CAD's making a run here. What are our numbers looking like? Let's see what we have here. Ooh, that's about well, maybe not the lowest, but one of the lowest numbers, employment numbers that we've seen in the U.S. for quite a while. Looking for 177, got 75. So that's pretty intense. Canada came out with some pretty good employment numbers. Looking for 5,000, got 27. So that's pretty good. Canadian employment number, unemployment rate has decreased by a big chunk. Usually 1 or 0.2% is definitely considered somewhat significant. 0.3% is what Canada reported today, so that's pretty significant. Average hourly earnings for the U.S. down. That's not good. So bad numbers, and nobody's making any more money. And so unemployment rate remains the same, but definitely a bit of a movement there. That's pretty interesting. Pretty interessante. So we've got the euro dollar kind of bumping around there, making a move. We see the dollar index making that stab that we talked about at 9,700 and beyond. We seeing things going here? Is this all right? I'll take it. I'll take it. We'll see if there's some follow through here, but important level. We're slowly kind of working our way out of this big long-term rising wedge, and that's pretty interesting. Bo, here's that euro dollar you were asking about. You know, same kind of chart, right? Just opposite direction. Big double bottom here. Dollar index had a big double top. Euro dollars had a big double bottom, and it's been kind of coming off that pretty steadily ever since. Euro dollar has been very, very range bound, and we've kind of been staying away from this one, but a lot of volatility and craziness through the last few days. But now it's getting a little interesting. Let's see how some of these CAD pairs are going. New Zealand CAD, not much reaction. We're not seeing a ton of movement on the CAD pairs themselves. In fact, we're seeing very little movement. A little bit of movement there on CAD Swiss. But yeah, CAD pairs are doing almost nothing. So the dollar is really kind of having the wild movement. Yeah, Corey, that CHF yen is going nuts. We have a trade on this from another group, and this is from the scanner group actually, and the Swiss yen's making a nice little run there. I'll take that. We'll take that. So, okay, guys, we have seen some good little movement here. I think I find myself decently interested in this dollar CAD. It's coming right down into kind of some of this craziness right here. Could be a time for for this dollar to really start scooting. Could be time for the Canadian to show a little more strength. We'll see the Canadian dollar. We've been trading the Canadian dollar kind of in all directions this year. We've taken bullish trades, we've taken bearish trades, and it'll be interesting to kind of see how this next move here plays out. But there's going to be a lot of support running through here, and I don't think the dollar CAD is just going to cut through it, but it might. It might. That whole area right here is pretty. That's pretty solid. So we kind of have that whole thing where it's just really bouncing around and so on. Anyway, I think that's definitely looking interesting. What are you guys loving? What pairs are you guys thinking look interesting this morning? I'm going to say dollar CAD. I'm going to say, again, we're not getting. It's a little bit more of a dollar movement. We're almost getting no movement out of Canadian pairs. Very limited movement. So I think this is a good opportunity to start finding some of those dollar pairs and seeing if maybe they're ready to start scooting. Like I said, we've only been lightly interested in U.S. dollar pairs I'd say the last couple of months, because they just haven't moved a whole lot. But this is maybe we had a little bit of a delayed pre-summer movement on dollar pairs, and they're ready to start giving us a little bit of activity, which I would take and be happy for. One thing that I'm looking at here, going back to this dollar CAD, we've got a couple of good targets up here. And if this reacts off support, remember we've got a couple of big important target up here at 136. We're hitting some pretty intense support. We've got a good target down here at about 131 as well. But I'd be curious to see if we kind of create a little bit of a pullback towards some of this, kind of get back to that consolidation as we're coming off that big support level. There possibly could be a little bit of a scalp in there that takes that back up into 133.50. I'm not super into that kind of a setup, but I could definitely see this thing starting to make its way back up for just kind of a little short term, a little bit of a short term move. Norbert, I put a pending sell below 133.40 and made 40 pips. Good for you, Norbert. That's great, man. That is excellent. Excelente. That's a great little fill there. Nice little move. Nice little scoot down. That's awesome. Good work. So yes. How about a buy in this pull down? Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, Bo. I think something like that could potentially work. We kind of want to let the markets cool down a little tiny bit for a few minutes, but I won't be surprised. It's lesser of the kind of trade that I would typically take, but I won't be surprised to see this just kind of pop back up, right? Sometime over the next 20, 30, 40 minutes, hour, kind of a thing. This is huge support. Are we going to get the big follow through? This Friday here? I'd say it's less likely. So again, that's a lot of resistance, a lot of supports. It's kind of been a big area that the dollar CAD has been bouncing around this whole year. So yeah, we might just that support might just be able to hold there, and we may get ourselves a little bit of a bump back. So it'll be something to keep an eye on. We'll watch it. If I do end up doing anything on that, in that area, I will, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, otherwise it looks like an interesting little spot. Let me check one thing really super quick here. Okay, perfect. Um, Sassy, Aussie CAD. Yeah, I like Aussie CAD a lot. Yeah, and actually, thanks for bringing that up because the Aussie CAD is looking pretty good. Remember, I sent out an email about this, kind of talking about a few of the setups that I'm liking here, and Aussie CAD is definitely in that arena. In fact, we can go out here to the longer time frames. Aussie CAD has, pretty continuously tested 9150 going all the way back about 10 years. Any movements back down into that support, and I'm buying Aussie CAD. So yes, I think that's a super good little spot to be trading on this pair. So as you guys know, I really like to find kind of long-term channels, long-term levels. You can look at this chart and say, well, there's big support down here, another 500 pips, and there's big support down here, another 1,000 pips or 2,000 pips or whatever. Yes, all absolutely 100% true. But this is essentially a triple bottom going into a quadruple bottom here that has held for 10 years. 10 years. It's pretty rare that 10-year levels get broken in currency pairs. They do, of course, they absolutely do. But 10-year levels are usually pretty good areas to trade around. And the closer that we can enter long against this 9150 on Aussie CAD, for example, which is still another 150 pips to go before we're really kind of in that area. But the closer we get into that, the sooner we could get out if we're wrong. If Aussie CAD is just determined to plow through this area, this 9150, then anything below that by too much would be something we'd say, hey, we're wrong. This isn't going to get bullish. It's not going to get long. Let's jump out of here and call it good. So the closer we can get into that 9150, the less risk we have to take if the trade doesn't work out. So I love that the news is driving some Canadian strength right now, because I am standing pretty well by the fact that I'm looking for this 9150 to hold. And so the lower this thing goes, the better. The low on this chart's about 9,200. If we can see a double bottom on this chart, I think that's a good spot to start kind of scaling in and getting bullish Aussie CAD. There's, as you can see, there's some missed targets kind of running through here that I think, maybe this is kind of working its way back down to kind of try to hit. And so it's very, very possible. We've got some important upper targets that still have not been hit. So the lower this goes, the more interesting that buy trade becomes. So yes, big long answer. I like the Aussie CAD a lot. So Aussie CAD is going to be a good trade. I actually like a lot of these Aussie pairs a lot. We've got, in the various groups, we've got some Aussie trades running. We made money. We've already made money on Aussie CAD. We've made money on Aussie New Zealand, Aussie dollar. We've got some Aussie Swiss trades running. We've got all kinds of things going on here. But again, going back to these larger pictures and so on, it's interesting to see some dollar weakness. We're seeing this, this Aussie dollar come off, same thing, 10-year lows. I think this takes us back into 2009. Since we were last here, and there's a big support down here, another 1,000 pips, 800 pips, 900 pips. But again, I think we've got a pretty good chance of this decade-long support level holding. We're seeing that dollar weakness that we want to see. We have that big rising wedge that has been trying to break out for what seems like months. And so as that continues to happen, I think the Aussie pairs are going to, specifically the Aussie dollar is going to continue to rally, and we're going to get some runs up on this one. I've got some targets I like up here, 7,100, 7,150. They're not too far away now, but the news is giving us some pretty interesting opportunities for Aussie CAD and Aussie dollar and dollar CAD. So yeah, good to see a little bit of reaction today. I like. Good. What else? What else you guys loving? Questions, comments here? Let me know. Wouldn't hate to see, just like I said, these are These are for future trades to keep an eye on. Would not mind to see that, and I wouldn't mind to see that. I think that New Zealand CAD is definitely looking very interesting, and I want to follow that thing along pretty well. Let's just peek for 1 second. Ooh, dollar CAD's pushing. It's pushing. Are we going to get a breakout, or is this too unsustainable of a movement? That is the question. And I don't know. This is an aggressive move right here, but the rest of this has been surprisingly steady. We haven't really left any missed pivots, market imbalances, anything in there. There's a little daily pivot here and there, but we'll see how this plays out. Manjit, pound Swiss. Yeah, the darn pound Swiss, man. That thing has been so crazy. I'm pretty interested in this pound Swiss channel, though. As you guys know, I'm not really actively trading any pound pairs because the pound is a little bit unstable right now while this Brexit, this whole situation gets figured out. But I'm kind of watching these channels here, and I'm watching what is happening. And, the pound Swiss had this massive sell-off, right, and left just endless amounts of targets. I think we hit that one, but, just four consecutive missed daily pivots, weekly, monthlies, weeklies, market imbalances, all kinds of stuff in there. Pound Swiss, at some point is going to be a good buy trade. I think this one looks interesting from the perspective of, markets can't run up or down forever. And the pound Swiss has kind of tried. It's made a pretty darn honest attempt at running down forever. so it's gonna have to turn and make a push for us. And a reason that I would say the pound Swiss has some interest to it is because every other Swiss pair is getting interesting looking as well. I like New Zealand Swiss. I like Aussie Swiss. I like dollar Swiss. I like CAD Swiss, Euro Swiss. And so the pound Swiss almost by default has to get bunched into that mix. So pound Swiss is super duper overextended, but at some point it's going to have to start making its way back up into some of those targets. So yeah, and there's some positive swap on that, some positive carry. Craig, just entered pound Swiss a few minutes ago. All right. I think I think a big important thing will be getting above 126.50. We get above 126.50 on this, and I think it'll start to open it up to movements into 129, 130. So we got to get above that 126.50, and that should kind of turn the corner for the pound Swiss. Okay, guys. Okay. So we're in the trade group, we've definitely had some interesting, good trades. Good, Craig. Yep, good. We've recently closed out, excuse me, Aussie CAD, Aussie dollar. We had interest rates for Australia last week. We closed those out and kind of took some profit. Looking to get back into everything Aussie. I kind of want to trade, as I've mentioned, everything Swiss franc. So I really like the Swiss franc. I really like the Aussie pairs. So that makes great opportunities for, Aussie Swiss, for, even this pound Swiss might, as they say, every dog has its day, and the pound Swiss might just have its day. And anybody that's along for the ride should see some good things happen there. A lot of pressure here. This is definitely still in bearish territory. Right this moment we have a bearish engulfing, just about a bearish engulfing candle on the 4-hour chart. So probably more downside here. But we'll see. Maybe this channel holds on pound Swiss. But yes, I do like pretty much everything Australian dollar. I like trading against those 10-year lows. And pretty much every Aussie pair is at or around a 10-year low. So that's thing number one to kind of think about. Number two, Swiss franc pairs. So Swiss franc pairs are getting a little extended, and they're starting to get very interesting for Swiss franc weakness. Now, here's the thing. the economy, the global economy right now, as we mentioned, is trying to transition into a little bit of a cautious, be careful kind of situation, right? And that kind of thing usually leads to yen strength, Swiss franc strength, um, dollar strength. All of those things kind of get benefit from from an uncertain economy. And that's where I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking at all this and I'm thinking to myself, should we just be long, Swiss franc? Should we be long yen? Should we be long all this stuff? And I think definitely maybe. So, trading yen pairs down, trading Swiss franc pairs down, trading all these things, most dollar pairs down, where the dollar's in, the second position there. Should we be trading towards strength on all of those? And as I look at everything, I think we're starting to get overextended levels on all of those safe haven currencies. We're starting to really get into summer ranges, right? We're partway through. We're first week of June now. Summer ranges are, well on their way. This is where major support and resistance levels really start to hold for at least June, July, August. And then August, we get that crazy volatility. And then we usually kind of going into the last 2 to 3 months of the year start to get the big pushes for breaking out of those summer ranges, right? So I think about all that stuff and I look at this and I think, maybe the economy is going to give us a little bit of a surprise, right? We're starting to see the signs on the charts, and the signs are telling us either things are, everything's kind of at a bit of an inflection point. Things are either going to get a whole lot worse, or this panic that everybody's been in about China and the U.S. and trade balances all around the world, and trade agreements all around the world. Maybe it's just going to be okay, and maybe everything's going to run nicely, and we're going to see that big dollar weakness start to work its way in, big yen weakness start to work its way in, and big Swiss franc weakness start to work its way in. And I'm kind of leaning in that direction. I'm starting to kind of position myself for that with a very reasonable risk. So I'm looking. Maybe I'm taking the optimistic view, which is not something that traders like to do. We like to trade the fear and the panic and the scary stuff, but I think there's going to be some opportunities for that. Okay, Norbert, Swiss Central Bank wants to keep Swiss franc weak. Yep, they sure the heck do. And in fact, they have negative interest rates, so they really want to keep that Swiss franc on the soft side for sure. And of course, Swiss franc is it's a really stable, except for in 2015 when they almost broke the entire foreign exchange market. The Swiss franc's a really stable pair, right? And we had a trade this year, I think, sometime in the last couple of months on that dollar Swiss, actually in the last several weeks even. That was so slow, so stinking slow. And it's because the Swiss franc is so stable. It can move, quite big on certain pairs. We had a dollar Swiss. We have kind of two safe haven currencies in the U.S. dollar and the Swiss franc. And that dollar Swiss trade, I think that was, our dollar Swiss trade that, we made some good money on it. But, man, it seemed like we had to sit in that thing. That was last month. We had to sit in that thing for so long because, it can move slow, very, very, very slow from time to time. But good things to look at. So, quick little peek back here. Okay, man. Yep. Mohammed, yep. NFP affected all the pairs. Yeah, we saw pretty good impact on several of these pairs. Less movement from the actual Canadian dollar itself, and a lot more movement from the U.S. dollar. Pretty surprising news out of the U.S. dollar. We've kind of just become accustomed to expecting good news constantly from the U.S. Employment numbers, and this was a pretty big shock today. So Pretty bad numbers. We're seeing the dollar get hit pretty hard. But I'm telling you guys, watch this thing, watch this dollar CAD as the day goes on, as the morning goes on here. And so, there we go. Whoops, there we are. So as the morning goes on, watch this dollar CAD. If it makes it much through 13300, which we're at right now, if it makes it much through that, we could definitely see further selling off. And again, with positive Canadian numbers and negative U.S. numbers, this could be an opportunity to see some follow through. I personally would not sell this. Buying off a pretty intense support level is always a good thing in my mind. But if this does push through, we can see movements like this happen, right? If we're finally on the move for dollar weakness that I've been waiting for ever and ever, then it's a good time to say, all right, take out some of this stuff, catch a couple of traders in the process, pull back, retest this, and then make that continuation move. And that's how I would look to see this play out. So this is absolutely not a sell trade of any type. The lower it goes, the more interesting it could become for a short-term buy trade. Come back and check this 133.50 level before further selling off into 131.50 targets. So pretty important area, I'd say, where this dollar CAD is. But yeah, give it a little bit of time to push through. And like I said, could be a good buying opportunity. The lower it gets, 132.60, 70, makes it even more interesting to buy it, trade that pullback, or just wait for that pullback into 133.50 and see if you can get a trade down into 131.50 on this. So I like that. I like that a lot. So Lester, good to see you, my friend. New Zealand dollar, I like New Zealand dollar. It's definitely making its way majorly up here, that's for sure. New Zealand dollar is, is probably ready to have its moment. I like New Zealand pairs. I'm glad you brought that up, Lester, because I like New Zealand pairs a lot. So New Zealand dollar, the thing that I didn't love about New Zealand dollar was this right here. I hated that it missed that double bottom. This is the daily chart. We have this big double bottom down here at 64, kind of 35, and we got this dip down here to, to just about 50 pips shy of that. And I thought, there's no way. That's going to be fine. Everything's good. Let's let this thing, come down and hit that level a little bit more, because we've got some other bigger levels on New Zealand dollar. And I thought we're probably and possibly headed, more into this, 60, 6150, 6200 area, which is why I wasn't so gung-ho about getting in before this double bottom, because this level goes back a little bit. Last time we were below was about 3 years ago. And so I thought, okay, all right, here we go. We're going to get down to that double bottom. It didn't get down to that double bottom. It broke out of this falling, descending channel here. And now it's making its way back up, and it's making its way back up in a pretty nice little way. One thing that the New Zealand dollar does is it trends and trends and trends and trends. So New Zealand dollar makes big movements, and it just goes forever, really. So this could be a time where we see some New Zealand dollar movement. I'm interested in Aussie New Zealand, and that's kind of a battle of the two. But pure New Zealand dollar movements themselves, I like bullish New Zealand movements. So buying dips against these support levels on on New Zealand dollar, US dollar, New Zealand CAD, as we talked about, New Zealand Swiss, New Zealand yen. I mean, look at this New Zealand yen. This thing is breaking out of this channel. We've been bumping along this this monthly pivot here. Still have a lot of great targets up here. So I think you know, and that's pretty significant. You know, again, this takes us back 10 years. Resistance for several years, broke through, support for several years. This area here, this 69.50-ish area on New Zealand yen is pretty rock solid. Anything below that, and we should be looking for you know, bearish movement. So we should be realizing we're wrong about anything bullish. But as long as it stays above 69.50, which is only about 200 pips away, there's some good stuff here. There's some good stuff. So I'm watching New Zealand yen, watching all these New Zealand pairs. I think there's going to be, you know, I think a reckoning is coming. So that's kind of what we're looking at there, folks. So, you know, I'll make no secrets about the fact that I want to get long everything Australia. I want to get long everything New Zealand, which is going to make the Aussie New Zealand a little bit tricky, but I still think that's a great trade. And I want to get short US dollar, and I want to get short Swiss franc. So that's kind of my outlook. I'll even write that down so you guys can kind of keep that big picture. And I could you know, we've got our areas where we say, whoops, we're not right about that anymore. But I think there's some really, really good spots to sell JPY, buy Aussie, New Zealand. Yeah. Basically, I want to get long Aussie New Zealand. I want to sell JPY, USD, CHF. So this is, by the way, not a popular outlook. Not a lot of people share this opinion with me. They say buy yen, buy dollars, buy Swiss franc. You know, Australia and New Zealand are going to get obliterated. And I'm kind of just the opposite. So I could be just completely totally wrong, or everybody else could be completely totally wrong. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think those are going to be some of the best trades that we see going into the summer and going into the end of the year. But there is a lot of wild cards in the works with you know, with this trade agreement stuff. Yada 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 yada. Okay, guys. So those are my thoughts for the morning. Any questions, any comments, anything? We've been going about 45 minutes here. And I think I'm ready to get started on a weekend. I'm headed to headed out of town for the weekend, and I'm looking forward to getting some rest and relaxation. Dorothy, yes, hold the heck out of that Swiss yen. You know, and that goes right along with this one's a little bit of a tricky one. It goes along with selling the yen, but I'm, you know, buying the Swiss, so it's kind of a little bit of a crazy one. But yeah, especially, you know, that nice little entry right there. Hold on to that thing. Let's get above 109, 45.50 area. Get that thing going into 110, 111. Hang in there. Hey, gotcha. Got a little Aussie New Zealand trade going there. Guys, good. Okay, thoughts, comments, questions? What do you guys think? What do you think? Thanks for joining us, all those that joined us today that don't normally. This is kind of a special event webinar, and I just invite a few extra friends that are not our typical you know, Monday and Friday trade group participants. So glad to have you guys with us. You know, very nice to see everybody. Good to see you, Sassy. Good to see you. And that's right. That's exactly right, Lester. We just let the market do its thing. Kieran, Aussie Swiss. Yeah, I'll have some details on that Aussie Swiss for sure. I'll post some things. In the premium group chat there on that. But Aussie Swiss, you know, everything's just kind of cruising along, singing a song, and we're just staying the course on Aussie Swiss right now. So no big change really there. So we're just letting the Aussie Swiss play out. If it dips down more, we'll buy more of it. Yep. Yep, just stay in the course. Stay in the course. Good to see you, Jeff. Ray, good to see you. Yep, yep, good guys. Good, good. Excelente. Excelente. All right. So, okay, guys, we'll call it good on that. Have a wonderful weekend, guys. Nice to see you, Keith and Kieran. Everyone, good to see you guys, Patty. If anybody has any questions, you can send me a message in any of the chats here. Stop by the website, daytradersfx.com. For those that are visiting us, just head over here to daytradersfx.com. Hit this learn more button, see what happens. Ooh, and you can put your email list in as well, but see what happens when you hit that button. Just go ahead. Go ahead. And we'll see how these markets treat us. So thanks everybody. Lots of details coming. We've got some trades running, and we'll just kind of let everything continue right on through. For premium members, I will see you guys Monday morning for our live webinar. We'll review more of the trades that we're in and more of the trades that we are trying to get into. So we'll let everything go from there. But thanks, guys. Lovely to see you all. Happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. And again, premium members, we'll see you guys Monday morning. Take care, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you all.